In New Harmony, Indiana, there stands a memorial to a Civil War hero, one who narrowly escaped capture by plunging off a cliff and swimming across a river to safety. It honors all veterans who, like this one, gave much and asked for nothing in return. Here's the catch. This brave soul was only 6 years old when she went off to war and was a different breed of trooper altogether.
Friendship is a bridge through time that allows loving memories of the past a chance to connect with our present and future. This story is about two lifelong best friends, a horse named Fly and a man named George. Fly and George grew up together working on the family farm in Posey County, Indiana. When the harness came off and the saddle went on, the fun began for both as they enjoyed riding through the countryside into town. George had named his clever young filly for the way she could fly like the wind at a full-out run. But life for Fly and George was about to change drastically. The Civil War began in 1861, and George joined Company B, 1st Cavalry of the 28th Regiment of Indiana Volunteers. He was allowed to bring Fly with him as his mount. Fly and George knew they could rely on each other, and they grew ever closer as they learned the ways of war. Fly even seemed to have a strong sense of duty all her own.
Fly loved the parade ground. She loved going and doing the drill and practice with the other horses. And George got sick and could not come. So she was left tied up by herself, and she did not like that one little bit. And so she broke free, ran to the parade ground, got with the group of horses that she usually drilled with, got in formation, did all the drills, and walked in formation back to the stable.
Soon that sense of duty and strength of character would be tested for both horse and rider throughout Missouri, Arkansas, and Mississippi in terrible battles, and one very narrow escape from a Confederate ambush.
They took off through the woods knowing that there was a river nearby, and thought that if they could swim the river, they could get the river between them and the Confederates. There was a river, but unfortunately they came out at the top of a high bluff. George was not one of the swimmers. And, you know, it's just like you've seen in so many movies, you know, the leap from the cliff. And so he got a hold of Fly's tail and she towed him across the river.
Luckily, George was never wounded, but Fly was wounded 3 times. Although she recovered fully, she bore the scars of war for the rest of her life. After 3 long years of military service, Fly and George safely made the long journey home to Posey County. Back on the farm they grew up on, Fly raised a colt, and George raised a family. Fly became a local celebrity as people came to see the horse that helped save the Union. George even took her to veterans reunions, and when the brass bands played, Fly would prance as if she were on the parade ground once more. As Fly grew older, she developed painful arthritis in her legs. George made a special sling for her, suspended from a tree branch, so Fly could stand more comfortably with her weight lifted from her aching legs. She lived a long, happy life, but after 38 years in George's loving care, Fly breathed her last. Fly's remains, including her life-saving tail and George's Civil War saddle, may be visited at the Working Men's Institute in New Harmony. The story of Fly and George lives on in our collective Hoosier memory, thanks in part to Bridgette Savage, and in part to each of us who remember friendship is a bridge through time.